Welcome or welcome back to the I Said What Ty Said channel. I apologize for having you wait so long, but it is time for part 3 in our series, 3 Things You Probably Didn't Know About Madam C.J. Walker. Before I get into the video, I want to give a quick shout out to Miss Drella. Part 3 is here. She made a comment in part 2 asking when was there going to be a part 3. And I also want to shout out to June McCullum, who commented on the video that I made about Bobby Womack marrying Sam Cooke's wife and sleeping with Sam Cooke's daughter after he died. She let me know in the comments in that video that she is a new subscriber to the channel, so I wanted to thank her as well. Now, let's get on to why you are here for part 3 of 3 things you probably didn't know about Madam C.J. Walker. In this series, we are going to talk about some of the more obscure facts about Madam C.J. Walker that are in the book On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker, which was written by her great-granddaughter, Alelia Bundles. And we will also be talking about the Netflix series Self-Made and just comparing some of the things that were shown in that movie to the reality of how things were written in the book. Where we left off in part 2, we had Sarah Breedlove, the lady who was to become known as Madam C.J. Walker, stepping out on her husband to spend time with Charles Joseph Walker, which was okay because her husband had been stepping out on her and having a very public affair. But my question to you in part 2 was, would your opinion of Madam C.J. Walker or Charles Walker or even the movie have been different had he been cast as someone who looked more like the real life C.J. Walker? Because apparently in real life, Charles Walker wasn't a deep chocolate brown like the handsome Blair Underwood, but he was said to be a black man with a very light complexion. Here are a few more points from the biography On Her Own Ground, The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker. A few more points about Charles Joseph Walker. When Sarah Breedlove met Charles Joseph Walker, he was working for one of the local black newspapers, likely the Clarion, selling papers, writing ads, and doing a little reporting as well. Definitely a step up from her husband, who couldn't even keep a low-paying job. He labeled himself as a natural-born salesman. He was, quote, what you would call yellow, unquote, is what an acquaintance of Sarah Breedlove said of him, which is fact number 1. Charles Joseph Walker was a light-skinned man in real life, and Sarah thought that because of his education and ambition, that they could build a future together. Unfortunately, there are no known photos of Charles Joseph Walker, but I am interested to know from you, does knowing that he was a light-skinned man change your opinion of the Netflix movie, or him, or Madam C.J. Walker, especially since she often spoke about light-skinned women having a much easier life than herself and her daughter? At least she did in the movie. Please answer that in the comments. Let's talk about it. Fact number 2 is just a very simple glance into the classism, colorism, featureism, and texturism climates of Sarah Breedlove's time. While there were definitely white people who enforced a social hierarchy based on skin color and hair texture, even to the point of making a correlation between blacks and animals because of black people having hair like sheep's wool, many of the slaves and free people of color who could claim white ancestry were no better than racist whites of that time when it came to comparing their own skin color and hair texture to black people with 2 fully black parents. Many of them were able to obtain land and college educations from their slave owner fathers. These antebellum elite blacks and mulattoes would come to populate cities like Philadelphia, Charleston, New Orleans, and Atlanta. And well into the 20th century, even their descendants would often distance themselves from darker black people in order to protect their own social standing. By the early 1900s, darker skinned black people who were ambitious enough to become educated started becoming educated. And this was a big move in blurring the lines of class. However, the desire for black women to have long, straight hair still remained and elevated the women who had it to a class above the other black women of the time who had more commonly short, kinky hair. And at the time, that's what Sarah Breedlove's hair was, short and kinky. The look that many black women wanted at that time heavily relied on something that they would never have: European or Native American genes. So, it's really not hard to wonder why Sarah Breedlove would have been fixated on hair as she moved up into a middle class standard of living and would have been surrounded by more women whose hair fit the desired look of the time. Black men's opinions on the subject were as questionable then as they appear to be often in this year 2020. Thomas Fortune, a black male writer, with European and Native American ancestry, by the way, well, he was a black writer for New York Age, and he wrote, quote, "It is generally the case of those black men who clamor most loudly and persistently for the purity of Negro blood have taken themselves mulatto wives." Unquote. Sound relatable? Fannie Barrier Williams, an activist and social reformer of that era, blasted those black men who she said were, quote, "apt to look to other races for their types of beauty and character," unquote. She said, quote, "What our girls and women have a right to demand from our best men is that they cease to imitate the artificial standards of other people and create a race standard of their own," end quote. And yet, another black woman orator of that time, named Nannie Helen Burroughs, said, quote, "There are men, right in our own race, and they are a legion, who would rather marry a woman for her color than her character." And because of the institutional hierarchy that denied legal rights and economic opportunities that all blacks at that time had to deal with, plus the social hierarchy that was in place amongst black people because of colorism, texturism, and featureism, Sarah Breedlove and black women who looked like her had a lot of obstacles to tend with in order to climb to the top. So you can almost imagine, you can almost feel why she would have been obsessed with growing long hair. Fact number 3: the Gibson Girl. White and black women wanted to be her. The Gibson Girl that was portrayed in the Netflix series Self Made was definitely real. She was created by magazine illustrator Charles Dana Gibson in 1890, and for 20 years she was the American standard of beauty. Her most praised feature was her long, silky tresses that were even hard for white women of that era to duplicate. But that didn't stop them, and even black women, from trying. Her tiny waistline was physically impossible for any woman to attain, yet both white and black women tried that as well. Since the 1880s, white women in America and Europe were consuming hundreds of thousands of pounds of human hair annually to try to achieve a similar look. So, black ladies, please don't ever think that you are the only group of women who have ever purchased hair to try to achieve fashionable looks. And just know that if white women in the late 1800s and early 1900s found it hard to achieve this it girl Gibson look, it was 50 times harder for black women to achieve it, and 100 times harder for black women who looked like Sarah Breedlove. But it was that desire that she had, her desire to even attempt growing long, healthy locks, that led to why we know her name today. Well, that is all that I have for part 3 of 3 things you probably didn't know about Madam C.J. Walker. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in part 4 of this series, we will learn about the real life Addie Monroe, the woman who helped Sarah Breedlove to get her hair healthy and growing in the Netflix series, and part of the reason why we know Sarah Breedlove now as Madam C.J. Walker today. Well, in real life, her name was Annie Minerva Turnbow, and we will discuss some factual dealings between the two of these ladies in the next video in this series. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ty Said What Ty Said channel. Please leave a thumbs up and a comment so that we can get a discussion going, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know when my next video is ready for you. See you on the next one. Thank you and have a great day.